T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Shout out to US ARC and all US ARC members. If you don't know what US ARC is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what US ARC is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a US ARC member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with US ARC organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a US ARC member. And if you can't become a US ARC member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what US ARC is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every US ARC member and US ARC supporter out there. True.
All right, Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. This is Krista with the Girls Who Love Reptiles podcast, episode 57 with Rebecca from Dragoon Gecko. I'm very, very excited to have her on. Tonight, we've been kind of messaging back and forth for quite some time, really wanting to have her on the show. Really inspired by her work, specifically with leopard geckos. She also has a background in veterinary medicine that we share, and just has a really true passion for the animals, the hobby, the industry. And with her being over in Europe, I really am excited to have that perspective of the industry as well, and kind of share our passions from across the world. And that's what all of this is about. So really excited to have her on to speak with us today. And before I bring her on, I will do some sponsors. So of course we have ReptiCo, the official sponsor of tonight's show. So we have Channing. She's the daughter of Billy and Dawn Rice from Rice Reptiles. She started her own business breeding high-end, high-quality hognoses, as well as crested geckos. So if you're not following, go ahead, follow them on Instagram as official ReptiCo. They're also on MORPH Market. And then of course follow the Rice family reptiles on MORPH Market. They're also producing quality YouTube videos every single week. So go ahead and give them a follow. And then, of course, we have Brian from SUNDOWN Reptiles. He's a breeder that I very much look up to. He breeds wonderful Chihuahuas. I have some of them in my collection myself, but he also does the tree monitors, and is overall a very passionate individual about reptiles and the species that he keeps. So if you're looking for any of those species or have questions, please reach out to him. And then, of course, if you're looking for quail specifically, reach out to Blake from Blake Exotic Feeders. He's here in Florida, but reach out to him if you're looking for quail as far as feeding a varied diet to our reptiles, and he'll get you set up right. And then, of course, we have RGI from raregeneticsinc Incorporated. So if you're saving those shed tests, make sure to reach out to him to get kind of see what packages and what deals they have going on for multiple shed tests. I know they're adding more tests all the time to increase the testing bank. But again, if you're collecting those sheds, definitely reach out to RGI to get it set up with that. And then we'll kind of end it with clutch. So if you're with your ball python specifically looking for kind of a really modern, easy to use interface to have everything organized with clutches, ID cards, hatchlings, pairings, all of that, definitely look into what they're doing at Clutch with Sebastian and of course the Canova team. They're always coming out with new features and making it as user-friendly as they can. If you have any questions, just go ahead and reach out, but highly recommend looking into Clutch. And then with that, we will bring our guest on and we will go ahead and get started. All right. Hey, Rebecca, how are you?
Good evening, Krista. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a very busy weekend. I went to I really recently moved to Florida a couple months ago, and they had a big reptile expo, a couple hours from me, where some Emilio with the Trap Network and some other friends were there. So I kind of hung out with them
No,
yesterday and then drove back today to kind of prepare for everything tomorrow. But it was a good time seeing them. Very
that's
lovely show.
always the best part, isn't it? Meeting people in person and connecting and yeah, just sharing the love. It's gets me every time.
Oh, it was such a great time. So yeah, we did that, hung out a little bit afterwards, and yeah, that's what's all about with the networking and making new friends. It was a great show. It's called the Scales Expo in West Palm Beach, Florida. But very, very nice show, very packed, a lot of people there. People did very well sales wise. So overall, a pretty great time. How's your weekend going?
Good so far. How was your move, by the way? I heard the last podcast with you, and that sounded quite interesting. Moving with all those animals and having the logistics behind it. So how
Yes.
did that go for you?
It was smooth. Everything transitioned very easily. I've kind of learned to be independent, as we say, as me, myself, and I. But yeah, so it was a big move across the country from Missouri. I mean, that was 20 hours of driving, by myself over a couple days. But everything's transitioned smoothly. Started the new job a few months ago, and that's been bit of a transition too. So getting used to being very busy, working very hard all day, and kind of
New
adjusting.
team, new schedule.
Yeah, my body hasn't quite gotten used.
Ooh,
I'm extremely tired most of
sounds
the
a
time,
lot.
so I
Yeah.
think it just take a few months to get used to it. But I do enjoy it though. So
That's one part of the job, right? If you're a veterinarian, you're always tired, always busy. It never ends.
no, it's like I'm just running around the place all day, and then usually in the afternoon, if I get lucky, an hour or two, I can get back to my desk and read emails and catch up on emails on that. But usually I'm like go 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 from 7 a.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. Running around. So, but it makes the day go by fast, and yeah, so can't complain too much. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's great to hear that you've settled in nicely.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really, really enjoy it. So yeah, excited to have you on and get to know you
Finally.
a little better. I know it's been a little bit, hey, that's kind of what
I'm
it
so
is.
sorry.
Okay. It's
We
okay.
wanted to do this for such a long time, and then time passed so quickly, and with a toddler it's even more crazy, and so many things happened. But as we already figured out behind the scenes, that's the perfect time now to
Yes.
do the interview, but because now I actually have some exciting news to share, so
That'll be
makes it
awesome.
more interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully we can kind of weave that in as we go along. But how did you first, get into reptiles? Kind of that's one of my favorite questions, just taking it back from the beginning and your interest and passion where it started from.
Honestly, that's the question I always struggle with the most, because I always have the feeling that people are not really interested in what I did as a
Oh,
teenager. So I
I'm
always
always interested.
um, I always struggle a little bit with that part. But yeah, I think we should start from the beginning. Of course, I mean, almost every passionate herper or reptile keeper came into contact with reptiles sooner or later, mostly during childhood or teenage years. With me,
Mhm.
it was no different. But I took a slightly different approach, maybe. Oh, little spoiler for all of you who might not know me. My name is Rebecca. I'm from Europe. I'm not a native speaker, so please bear with my funny accent and some misspellings or some struggling over words. I'm doing my best, and it all comes from the bottom of my heart. So let's dive right in. So yeah, I started my journey actually with breeding badgers and guppies, and pretty soon I didn't breed them just for reproduction. I jumped right in breeding them for standard and for competitions. I don't know how that happened. I can't explain it. It just happened naturally. I remember myself at 6 or 7 years standing, you know, at the pet shop and looking at those guppies and
Yeah.
realizing they all look different.
Yeah.
And that's what fascinated me immediately. And I still remember driving those, you know, service people nuts when I was, you know, demanding that one special fish out of the tank of I don't know how many. And yeah, I basically stepped right into that and had the great honor and privilege, I have to say, and I have to really stress this, to, you know, got into contact with some of Germany's most knowledgeable and experienced standard fish breeders in both the guppy and the betta fish scene. And they were far ahead of their game. They were 40, 50, 60 years old, and I was just a little kid with nothing to bring on the table, nothing at all, just my curiosity. And they were so kind and so generous as to give me the chance to learn from them. However, they demanded consistency and respect, not for them, for the animals. And that changed everything for me. That was a very valuable lesson that stuck so deeply with me. And it basically opened the path for everything that followed and for everything that Dragoon Gecko is today. It basically started, this whole journey started with a kind gesture of some older people, mostly
Yeah.
men, who were, you know, taking a little girl under their wing and weren't sugarcoating anything, but were really there to guide and to help. And yeah, basically, I learned a lot of managing projects, how to approach breeding from a more educated side of things, so to speak. And of course, this sparked my interest, not only in fish, but also in, you know, genetic projects, line breeding, and also trying to contribute something positive when you're breeding. It's not about fitting the fish in a standard per se. It's also only when you give the fish the perfect breeding conditions in the housing and the keeping, then they reproduce. Especially for, I mean, guppies, they are beginner friendly, but especially the betta splendens or others, if they don't really like the conditions, they won't breed. So I think that was a very valuable lesson to learn, that one for me cannot go without the other, that housing and breeding are two sides of a coin. And that whenever I was thinking about breeding, I was also simultaneously looking at how to improve housing conditions and what we can do and what the animal truly needs. So yeah, that was a great start. And I got into leopard geckos in the year 2000. And I think that was a wonderful time back then, because I was working in a pet shop to fund my hobby. Because yeah, spoiler alert, my parents were really nice, but they were very clever, and they told me straight front up front, you know, if you want to do this and if you want to plaster your children's room with aquariums, you have to earn that for yourself. I mean, we cannot afford that. And that was a good thing, because they wanted to challenge me as well. They wanted me to be responsible and really think about what I could afford, and wanted to see how hard I was willing to work for that. So I did. And I worked in a pet shop to fund this hobby. And after a short time, my room looked like, I don't know,
Tanks everywhere.
like an aquarium, aquariums everywhere. And I bred many species, but I really stuck with the betta splendens and the guppies. And fun fact, I was the first breeder in Germany to breed purple Siamese fighting fish. So that was a cool one.
Yeah,
that was a really cool, you know, achievement for that age, that told me that hard work really pays off, and patience is the key to everything. We dive into this later. So yeah, around 2000, when I got in contact with the leopard geckos, the first books came out. And you know, everybody who still is from that time remembers it. It was so funny. People were dreaming about those high yellows and those super hypo baldies, this yellow geckos with a little tint of carrot tail and a few spots less. And that was amazing. And people were over the moon. And then the first tangerines came. And basically what happened is that from 2000 to 2005, basically the first higher end or true color morphs became available, because the bigger breeders realized that there is a market and a demand in Europe, and they imported and shipped their animals over to Europe, basically to the Ham show in Germany. That became, and this show still is, the central show
I
for
want to go and visit. Yeah.
all things in Europe. So I figured that out pretty quickly, and I made the decision that I have to go there. I need to see those geckos, because you know, what's better than you know, seeing all those animals with your own eyes, and
It makes total
instead of
difference.
instead of just watching them in books, right? So when I got there, I was totally overwhelmed, and I was so smitten, and I made the hardest decision ever in 2005 to sell all my valuable fish breeding projects and everything that I had to get into leopard gecko morphs.
Wow.
And the animals that I acquired from this initial money became the founding stock of some of the lines that I still breed today here at Dragoon Gecko, for example, or lavender lines. They are far, far, far descendants from the very first geckos that I picked up at that show. And I still remember this show like no other, because I was picking up actually some super hypo, super cool baldy females from Gecko Galaxen in Sweden. And when I did, I came in contact with them, and they basically, we had this chit chat, this talk that people have, you know, when you have a customer like, oh, is this your first leopard gecko? No, but it's my first color morph, and I want to become a breeder. And you know, being a young girl, the enthusiasm was in the air, and then they, you know, were, they had this kind of smile, like, okay, yeah, the buck hit her. So the question that I was asked was, do you want to see something really cool? And just think about it from a perspective of math. How small is the chance that of all the people you could have talked to at this fair, of all the possible boxes that you could have opened, you open exactly, and you are shown exactly the very, very first electric tangerine leopard gecko that was
I can
ever
imagine.
imported to EU.
Bright
And that was
orange.
Saturn.
Yeah.
And Saturn, he just blew my heart away. That was it. That was like fate. He had this bright blue eyes, this dark blue eyes, similar to the Bay mutation that we know today. But it's common in some of the electrics. It fades with age. But when he was a young male, he was spectacular. I've never seen anything before. And he had such an intelligent expression. And this gecko stole my heart. Still has. And fun fact, after 10 years of chasing him, I finally got him in my collection. And he's now here with me. So that's a true love story. And hopefully one that proves that true love never dies. I just couldn't forget about him. And I was overjoyed. And just imagine, I chased this gecko longer than some people have their dog. And that's always something that I want to stress when people say, oh, it's just reptiles, it's no pets. They are my pets, every one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. You build a connection with them. They each have their own personalities, you know, so.
So, basically, so to speed things up a little, I started in 2005, and coming home with this experience, it was pretty clear where the journey was heading to sooner or later. So I moved from Germany to Austria to become a veterinary student, met my student colleague Martina, and together we founded Dragoon Gecko in 2007, when I successfully also convinced her of keeping and then breeding color morph leopard geckos. And we
Mhm.
did this for a while. And after some years, she unfortunately had to quit
Mm.
because she wanted to focus on her study, and it became overwhelming. And at the same time, we both made a very difficult decision for the both of us. Fun fact, we both were people that had two passions. We are
Mhm.
both very creative and artistic people. And on the same side, we are both very into veterinary medicine. So we both always wanted to be an artist and a vet. And those are two lives that really don't go well with each other.
Yeah.
And as you can assume from your own studies, it becomes challenging, very time consuming, and you have to decide what you want to do. And after really thinking hard about it, and that was a decision that wasn't done lightly for me, I realized that my greatest joy, as much joy as I have from doing the study and learning and diving deeper into veterinary medicine, I really love working with those animals. And
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to do, and what I wanted the possibility to spend as much time as possible with them. And I realized that it would become maybe difficult to do that in the future as a full-fledged vet, because naturally my responsibility would be different, and it would
100%.
also be a shame from my personal view to finish the study and then not working in the field. So if I'm going through, I knew that I definitely would have loved to work as a vet. So I
Yeah.
decided to choose the creative side, and Martina chose the veterinary side, and we're
Mhm.
still very, very close today. And every time we meet, I say, oh, you're so lucky to be a vet. And she said, oh, you're so lucky to be an artist.
Yeah. Usually want the other side. I totally get that.
So,
I
but I
full-time vet.
think
It's hard.
yeah, I think it was the perfect decision for both of us. And I continued, Dragoon Gecko as a hobby, but, ventured more in other things. And Martina fully concentrate on her study. She's still my number one source to go to. She's still a coach for me, and, um, having a huge positive impact on all things that are medical related and
Yeah.
setup related. So I fully trust her experience. And fun fact, she's now a specialized vet for reptiles and for leopard geckos.
Very cool. I'm sure that's very rare. It's rare here in the US, but I'm sure overseas is that correct? Like specializing is pretty.
Super rare.
It's just
Super
a
rare.
hard road here. You have to do school, do residency, you don't get paid much through that time with everything so expensive. A lot of people aren't wanting to specialize anymore. I did lab animal medicine personally, more of the research side of things, which worked out well. But yeah, it's hard to find those. So kudos to her. That's really amazing and good perfect for you and what you're doing to have that kind of
Totally. So
lifeline.
we're basically having the same problem over there in Europe. It's very hard, finding opportunities as a reptile vet, and especially with some regulations, it made things more complicated. For example, in Austria, after 2007, 2008, if I remember it correctly back then, reptile fairs were practically not officially banned, but they just don't happen anymore.
Mm.
You can only sell bugs and, um, you know, maybe some centipedes or mantis or insects of all kinds, but you're not allowed to bring any reptiles to a show
Oh, wow.
anymore.
Hmm.
And of course, that strips away possibilities for official
Mhm.
vets working and having a job and having a purpose. And I think that's a little bit sad, because it also gave a wonderful opportunity to actually control that all animals brought to the show were in excellent condition, that they were presented in the requirements that the show demands and that the animals need. And overall, you know, protect the animals' interests. But of course, those are different views from different sides, and we need to respect that and work with what we have. And yeah, so it is not easy anymore becoming, you know, a reptile specialized vet, because opportunities are slim, and payment often is not as it should be for someone who has done all the work. So whenever I'm talking with someone like you or Martina, kudos go out to all of you girls and guys that went through this very challenging and, you know, difficult study. And I'm proud of all and every one of you, and I'm wishing you all the best. And I think that should be respected a little bit more.
I agree. I think, yes, it's interesting here. I feel like most people respect vets. It is interesting, though, if I talk to sometimes nurses or doctors, they don't respect the education as much. It depends. I'm saying all, but in general, they make for very difficult clients, doctors or nurses, because they have the medical knowledge, and so they don't really, they challenge you on, you know, drug concentrations and all that, because it's different in human and people, but or humans and animals, I mean. But yeah, anyways, yeah, no, I appreciate it's, you do it for the passion, right? Same with the breeding of the geckos. It always comes from love and passion. You can't do something so rigorous or so challenging if you don't have the passion. It just is, it's going to fail every time. So yeah.
And you know, we have the saying in Europe, and I'm probably sure you guys, you know, have your own version of that: real doctors treat more than one species.
Yes, so we have that here. Yeah, real doctors treat more than one species. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I have an old shirt when I was in vet school that has that actually on. I don't know if I still have it or not, but I bought a shirt with that saying on it.
I remember anatomy. You know, I went through it, and it was really challenging at times. You know, when you have to, you know, learn 5 species or more, and reptiles were also always, you know, the very last thing they would ever ask you about. And that was so sad for me. I was always sitting there like,
Yeah.
please ask me about reptiles. And then they asked me about cats and dogs and cattle. And I was like, but what about the geckos?
Oh, what about this? Yeah, it's, I mean, over here in vet school, I got one lecture over all reptiles in all of my, just one lecture, no anatomy, no nothing. I took like a clinical rotation where I worked with them, but as far as book, like lecture material, no, just one lecture over all the reptiles is all that I got. It's not a focus on the national board exam, so that's why vet schools don't focus on it. So we really don't have knowledge of them coming out of school.
Maybe that will change in the future. I mean, we have some interesting trends going on, and you never know. Future is uncertain, but that's something that I personally would love to see, that students have a little bit more flexibility, choosing earlier, you know, what they really want to go into or focus on, or maybe, you know, being provided with more talks or summer schools or something. I remember well, we had the summer school, reptile summer school, and that was fantastic. It was brutal because you had 6 hours of lectures and then 6 hours of practical, you know, examinations every day. So your day was quite long, but we did it, and we were overjoyed because finally we could, you know, focus on what we all loved. You know, and I was surprised back then even that the students were very eager to learn about, you know, exotic animals. So definitely a very interesting topic.
Very interesting. I kind of want to ask this question. It's not it's a line, but you've been doing this for a little bit. How have you seen the kind of trends in Europe as far as like the interest have you seen it kind of go up? I mean, we've seen that in the US. Over here, I think, with just general social media, putting reptiles more in a positive light, but I'd be curious, you know, if that's the same in Europe too. More of a curiosity question.
Well, I have to say that we always need to keep in mind that Europe is not one country like the US with different states. We
Yeah.
are a collection of very different cultures. So
Mhm.
what could be true in Germany
Mm.
could be totally not the case be in another country and even a neighbor's country, or what is a trend in a small country like Austria compared to the economic power and impact to Germany or to France,
Mm.
could also have a different weight. So I always like to approach things a little bit from the scientific and logical side, and trying to give an honest answer to those
Mm.
not so easy questions, because as we see, things are not so easy often as we like to, but there are also opportunities. So coming back to your question, I think overall, if we take Europe as a whole, I think I see definitely through positive influencers, also through a massive positive influence of US influencers and keepers. So always keep in mind, guys, that uh, are watching here. We're all looking at each other, and US influencers are indeed very loved and cherished over here in Europe. So people know them, people follow them, and you guys help set the standards and help bring this wave in motion. And I think what I see definitely is a rise in interest, and also a rise in the popularity of very important topics that me and some others trying to push for years in our podcasts and articles, and that has increased sensibility for animal welfare, just positive possibilities to enrich, to connect, and to care. And I think that opens beautiful possibilities. And this is something that makes me very confident that reptiles are on the rise for sure as a pet, possible pet for the future, and that there's so much more than just the one or two snakes of the one or two nerds in the basement, that stereotype feeling that we had 10 years ago. It's not accurate anymore. And luckily, we are able to show the world now what reptile keepers, really are, and how diverse they are, and how beautiful those animals, are to work with.
100%. Yeah, I like that answer. I like that it's interesting the influence part of it too. I don't feel like we don't always realize that sometime, but if we can create to push out a positive influence and spread the positivity, it's really makes a huge difference worldwide, which is pretty amazing to think about, and it just makes our jobs that much more important, I think, for the animals sake overall. So yeah, pretty cool. We'll kind of keep going. Guess we can kind of get into like your kind of main projects, mainly ones you started out with, if those kind of changed at all, and what kind of things you've learned. And kind of maybe too big of a question in one, but kind of take us back on, your projects and how you
Mhm.
decided pairings and I also like people who have been in it for some time, like the evolution of it over time and what you've kind of learned as a real big basis. I know it's a pretty open-ended question, but we'll kind of see where it goes from here. Yeah.
I also think that those questions are, very, very closely linked to each other, because they all form a circle, a positive circle, if you're will. So yeah, I think basically what I started with in 2005, 2007, what was available at that time. And we also need to, I think it's important to give younger viewers a little bit of context here. So let's remember that was the golden age where the first true spectacular color morphs were in the
Mhm.
making and just became available. Sorry. So when I was visiting Ham in 2005, for example, I know for sure that the very first raptors were imported to Europe, and the price was about 2 to 3K per animal.
Mm.
So that was a lot of money.
Mm.
And Also, we had the electrics coming at that
Mhm.
time. We had the super hypotangerines from Rayhine, and we had the ghosts from LXU way before, I think in the early 2000s. And when the Raptor came, it's you can compare it a little bit to the Black Knight
Mm.
hype that started. So the Raptor started a whole new hype in leopard gecko history. Everybody wanted to have it. Everybody wanted to work with it because it was so significantly different from
Yeah.
all those geckos that had just a little bit of orange or maybe a little bit carrot tail. The Raptor had it all. The first Raptors, they had it all. They had bright carrot heads, they had bright carrot tails, they had nice bright colors, they had this ruby red eyes, they had everything that you wanted at that time that you could ever wish for. So if you were into trampers and into tangerines, Raptor was the way to go. So what happened is, on the one side, we saw a lot of projects forming in the coming years that were heavily tramper based, but we also saw some animals or morphs decline because popularity wasn't, as big anymore now that people were following that new and hot trend and trying to make their own, version of things. So why is this important? In this context, two things happened. First, I still was a student with very little money and big dreams. And I'm totally honest here. I everything that I have built up with initial investment of 50 euros back then,
Wow.
many,
Wow.
many, many, many years ago. So if you don't have much money, you have two chances. You can either try to go the way that most people go. You can, buy many geckos cheap, or you can go the way that I have always chosen, and that has always been the best path. First, take a step back, education. Find out what the morphs are, what you can afford with the money that you have, and how do you get the best gecko for your initial investment. And that's what happened. So I got into tangerines first and super hypocarrot tails because I couldn't afford a pure tangerine group at that time.
Mhm.
And electrics were out of the question with
Yeah.
1,000 euro plus per animal. I was lucky if I could, afford 100 or 150 euro animal at that time. So I made sure that that I narrowed it down to the minimum amount of animals that I needed for this project, and I made sure that I chose the best quality possible that I could afford. And quality, we come in this later, does mean a lot of things, not only what you can see with
Mm.
color wise. So
Mm.
that was my approach. And of course, already starting veterinary medicine, I took into account what we learned during study and of course the responsibility that comes with this study. And I was trying to amplify whatever possible on those beliefs and systems and just breed smarter and on a very controlled and low number, but always with genetic power behind it. And that has been the key. That has been something that has, carried me through the ups and downs of the
Mm.
past 20 years, to say the least. And what started with tangerines, ended up in the situation that I realized some of the older morphs were just becoming affordable because nobody wanted to work with them. For example, ghosts. They were muddy, they were dark, they were ugly in the eyes of many people. People straight out called them ugly.
Oh
And I
no.
saw the first one, and I remember, and especially in the Maxno version, they looked spectacular, but they were, just comparable to a low quality Maxno when they
Mm.
look so stunning and crisp as a baby, as a hatchling, and then they fade into what is supposed to be a white animal, fades into bright yellow, wild type animal, more or less. So same with the ghost, with the original old ghost, they became muddy, and even the snows became, non-existent. the phenotype. So people were not really looking at them. And that was an opportunity for me. I saw something in them, but I have to be honest here. My decision was not based on a financial standpoint. It was just that I loved how this animal looked in a certain way, and I saw the potential, what I could do with a lot of hard work. I knew it would take work, but I was willing to invest it because I thought, what if they just disappear? What if nobody wants to breed them anymore? So that led me to a project that was for me easy to obtain but hard to master. So coming back to how these things are always woven into each other, as a breeder, I think you have two things that you can invest. You can invest either time or you can invest money. You have to make a choice sometimes. And I didn't have much money, so I invested time. But it took me 15 years to come from the very first ghost to the modern ghost that, you know, are so far away from the initial ghost. As you can imagine, the modern ghosts of my line, they have a very distinctive look. People realize that they are from a certain line, like a Dalmatian, you know, stands out against the German Shepherd. Although both are dogs, they are completely different. And that's what I tried to achieve. So I cleared up in the first step, I cleared up the colors in the ghosts, I made them brighter, lighter, and then I crossed them into other high-end projects, and I combined them very strategically based on what I saw that they could do. And that basically, and nothing of this was strategically planned for success. So I see so often that especially the younger ones, they approaching it, especially also in the ball python scene, also in the leopard gecko scene. Often, you know, breeding is approached with the initial thought of how do I become a big breeder fast. So the best way is to get into A and cross it with B, and then maybe I get there. So what happened for me, it was quite the opposite. By following my heart and my gut feeling and just taking the time and making sure that I never surrender quality, no matter how low my budget is. I made sure that success naturally followed, and that people after some years started to realize my ghosts and my ghost line, and that my ghost line now today lives in US, in Canada, in all of Europe. That is amazing. I would have never ever believed that to happen, especially, you know, if you would be talking to young Rebecca, I would have never believed that people nowadays would say, oh, ghosts are really cool and we love what you proved you can do with them. So it all happened by just following principles and basically focusing on quality and always having also the animal's interest at heart. So we can talk to that later maybe. But that was something that basically Dragoon Gecko became pretty known for, or let's say it was the first real signature project for us. Working with the ghost, doing many first-time combos, which also happened more or less by chance because there weren't so many people working with them at the time. And we hatched out some really amazing animals that I still love and cherish today. We had, for example, I know you're a Tramper fan. We hatched the very first Montanos ghost raptor. And that's a wonderful story because when the first raptors appeared in affordable prices, again, this was a few years after, I think around 2008, 2009, the raptors became more and more affordable, more and more people were breeding them. But what were they doing? They were inbreeding, of course, because everybody was trying to get his huge investment back. So when they became affordable, people were complaining, oh, raptors are sick. They are not a strong morph. And I thought, this is not true. I see so many beautiful, strong animals in US. So it has to be the inbreeding or you know, the lack of right selection here in Europe. It's not, you know, something that is linked to the raptor complex itself. So what I was trying to do was thinking about how can I strengthen this raptor line? How can I put some value in the animals and outcross them smartly. And what I wanted to do was basically I used a male pure Montanos that wasn't used for breeding in a wild, group anyway. So I didn't take away any valuable female at that time. I just used an excessive male that wouldn't have ended in breeding anyway and would have been sold as, pet or something. And I crossed it with the raptors. And a few years later, I hatched Dracana. And she was the very first Montanus ghost raptor. And she had an eye mutation that is, linked to that is eclipse. So I'm not sure still today what really was going on with that animal. Her daughters and sons had it to some extent, but nobody had it in this form ever again. That was like a kaleidoscope. You can still see it in the picture. And she was just this beautiful pastel pale raptor with iridescent layer of bluish, sea green, shimmering, yellow shimmering elements. And I was just blown away. And then I posted this very proudly, of course, in the European forums. And then all hell broke loose. People were like, what are you doing? You're crossing wild types with color morphs. You're diluting our precious wild caught genes. And this color morph breeding goes way too far. And at the same time, I posted in the US forums. And the response there was like, oh, that's a nice idea. Great work, Rebecca. They seem happy. You're doing something right. And I was like, talking about cultural differences.
Yeah, that's crazy. Two different responses with that. Super interesting.
And, no, it was just I think it was a misunderstanding. So it was just one forum. It doesn't represent all people in Europe. And the funny thing is, after I posted a link to the American forum, and I said, hey, my intent was just to strengthen the line. I used excessive male, and let me know your thoughts if you still think it's not good. Then people were really coming around and were like, oh, okay, we haven't thought of it, from this angle of this angle, and your perception is quite interesting, and let's see how this goes in the future. So that was also one moment where I found that staying kind and trying to explain opens doors and opens hearts, because there was no bad intention behind the outlash. It was just that people were really worried that the last wild blood populations would get mixed and mingled up, and that was clearly not the case here. So I think what this shows is that we can all learn from each other, and that sometimes you need to approach things from a different angle in order to really have the animal's best interest in mind. And when people saw that my raptors from this project were double the size and eating well, I had them, I won them over, and I had their support. So I think that was amazing. And that was also something that I would have never, ever imagined would be possible. So being persistent, sometimes taking a step back, being kind, and just articulating yourself and giving others the chance to understand your point is really a wonderful approach to go.
100%. And you don't see that a lot. Social media makes it so hard to get all up in arms and be aggressive and all. It makes it, just a little toot, and then it's all, and it's out there. So yeah, I agree with that. There's so much. I feel like in the past month, or at least a couple weeks, definitely on the US side, a lot more negativity and going on, seeing things at shows and just online about not being super kind and just being really negative, and it's never productive either way. So trying to take it more positive or calm.
Well, of course, if you're doing this for some time, there will be always, phases where things are more positive and phases where things are more less positive. But to be really fair, my overall experience over the last 20 years has been a very positive in both the EU and US, and I also maybe I allow myself to have a little bit kennel blindness only towards this topic. I'm trying to blend out a little bit. If I see negativity, I'm trying to, just do what I do with kindness and passion. And I think that giving some people also space to think and to really see what we're doing is also really contributing to a positive climate. So this is also something that has worked well for me. Sometimes just giving the others a little space and giving them the feeling, hey, we might not be on the same path or opinion right now. That's totally okay. Watch what I do. If you're interested, you can ask me any questions. Just staying open-minded and not giving the other party the feeling that you look down on them or that you, ignore them or don't take them serious. On the contrary, they are welcome to have any serious questions that they are on their hearts. They are very welcome to ask them to us breeders. And I feel that this is a very good approach, and it smooths out some of the stormy weathers and makes things a little easier.
Yeah, you never know what people are kind of going through in their personal life. So it's always just take things from a broad base and not take things personal. Difficult, harder to do, obviously, but easier said than done. But yeah, trying to take that approach. But yeah, I'm back to like the breeding side of things, color, of course. But what are some other things that you kind of look for with the breeding, and how do you kind of like balance that out? Because I find myself running into that, like with ball pythons, especially. This animal may have less genes, but the gene that is there is higher quality than another one that maybe has multiple genes. So you kind of come in this sort of decision making, and I want to kind of hear your thought process on that.
Oh, well, I mean, giving the fact that we have been working on many projects that are focused on line breeding or selective breeding, like, of course, the Albay Snows or Ghosts or Lavender lines that we developed into two different separate lines that split up, so to say, a few years ago in the ultraviolets and the lilacs. So we see where that goes. And also some selected tramper lines. So we have quite a variety, and the core to most of them really is selective breeding. So I totally understand your point here. And this is an excellent question, Krista, because I think this is something that I struggled with and that most breeders struggle with sooner or later. And I personally feel that, of course, we have to take into account that breeding leopard geckos and breeding ball pythons have their own unique twists and their individual approaches. So if I coach someone, for example, for ball pythons, it's a different approach than when I coach someone on leopard geckos. But one of the things that I would say, especially in the ball python world, is that selective breeding is so overlooked because we have this Tetris mentality. You're just packing as many genes as you want into the animal, and then you're good to go, without realizing that whenever you are open morph market and you're scrolling through all those, let's say, Xantics or orange dreams is one really, really cool one, the orange morphs. There are so many varieties. There's such a difference. And I think it's for a good reason that some breeders like Kinover have excellent quality no matter what genes they're working with. It seems they are always high quality because they do not compromise on quality. So when it comes to color, and this is not the only thing that I want to stress this, we go into this later, but especially when it comes to color, taking a little time and getting to know the morphs or the mutation you want to work with, and getting an eye for what's out there and what you want to work with, could open opportunities that really can take you where you want to go on the long term. So basically, when my personal approach with the leopard geckos is, I'm not thinking in years. I'm thinking in generations. I don't care how long it will take me to produce that one animal that is the founding father of the next generation, or the founding mother of the next generation. I know whenever I have an animal like Calara or Ghost Lavender Stripe that hatched in 2012, that this is an animal that you hatch every 5 years or so. It's just the perfection, the color brilliance, the robustness, the overall quality and health of the animal, all this packed into one animal. You don't achieve this, especially in a smaller facility, every year. So the smarter approach is to do it in the way that a high-end horse breeder would do. You don't, hold back the first filly of your mare just because it's a filly, or the first colt just because it's the first foal. You're selectively breeding. You're trying to pick that one that really expresses the quality in the way that you wanted to have, and that you need to push your whole collection on the next level. And I think this is a drastically different approach.
Yeah.
That's the approach that I always take, and how I evaluate my animals. And this is also the reason why approximately under 5% of animals if we have a good year, that's 5% of what we have is considered a holdback. And out of these holdbacks, again, not everybody makes it into breeding. We have a very strategic approach, and a very, high standard here. And I make sure that only the animals who fulfill the standard are going into breeding. And that saves me so much trouble in the long term. And it might sound slower at the beginning, but it definitely is so much stronger, and it is in the animal's interest, because a beautiful gecko is of no use if he is not healthy. So first and foremost, what you want to do is you want to select your animals like Mother Nature would do. You like to see it through the eyes of Mother Nature, so to speak. You look at the animals and you will exclude the ones who do not grow well. They are sold as beloved pets to families. They do not end up in a breeding program. So you will trying to, really look at it from an angle that combines the quality of the morph that you're looking for with the physical requirements that the animal has, and trying to put all of this in one gecko. So it can be challenging at times, but we have managed to create a system that works really well for us.
Okay.
And we track that very religiously.
Yeah. Makes sense. And I think over time it becomes easier. When you're starting out, it is difficult. You do all the work, spend all the time, and then you get your first one, and you want to hold it back when that not necessarily may be the best.
You can do that. That's what I always teach, my students. You just because you're holding them back and you love them, it doesn't mean that you have to breed them. You can hold them as pets. You're free to care and love every darling little gecko on this planet. But you have to be responsible and make the decision, is this my beloved pet for the rest of its days, for a long and happy life here in my living room to have, to hold, to enjoy? Or is it something that really, puts his mark and shapes the future of my whole bloodline? And I think those are two very different things, and should be approached differently, especially when we are talking about animal welfare and responsible breeding. Breeding, the difference between breeding and reproduction.
It's a big
It's
difference.
not,
Breeding and responsible breeding. There's a big difference in that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And thinking about that alone, I think, opens many eyes and also opportunities doing the right thing and going the right path. And this is also, I heard a very smart man say a very cool sentence. He said that most people fail because they're spending all their resources and time and money on finding the short path that doesn't exist. And I think there is much truth behind that if you approach it from that angle. So if you're taking your time, if you're really thinking about what you want to work with, what budget you have, how to ensure to get the best quality for the budget that you have, and how to evolve from where you are to where you want to be, then the path becomes clear. And especially coming back to the ball pythons, I definitely would say that working with high quality expressions and fewer genes is absolutely preferable than having another ball python in a pretty oversaturated market that looks pretty on paper, but on the picture it looks no different than all the rest of the snakes.
Yes,
And
100%.
you have to really take that into consideration. Your snake baby that you hatched is competing against all those other snakes on MORPH market. And this means that we need to approach this from when we want to do what we do ethically, we need to consider reality and being prepared of asking ourselves also and challenging us, asking the important questions and not staying, Alice in Wonderland, like, oh, I'm buying my electric for 50 euros instead of the best one for 1,000 euros. And it will still produce 1,000 euro geckos.
Yeah.
And I will be fine because everybody doesn't know how a true electric looks. And, it doesn't work that way. The question sometimes is what you want to do, what you personally like, and what you can ethically bring into this world and put in good hands. And that requires a little bit more than just I'm going out buying geckos and then hoping for the best. So that was never my approach. And I'm really happy to say that we have, over all those years also stayed very small and selective because we didn't want to have the pressure of selling so many babies at once and being overwhelmed. And that gave us the huge advantage that we had usually more people, and still today I have more people asking for my animals that I have offspring. For this season, we just have 5 eggs and 8 babies left. And I don't know. I have no worries whatsoever that we will bring them in good hands because I already have a waiting list. So that requires hard work. It's not that it comes overnight. And I think I owe this to my animals to really make sure they're getting into responsible hands and not rushing things. And if I don't feel comfortable with someone, then I'm not doing, the sale. And I really want to make sure that someone really knows what he's getting into and really cherishing also the animals and the genetics he works with if he decides to go for breeding. So what we also do with some of the higher-end morphs, I offer a free genetic coaching occasionally to make really, really sure that the one who's working with it really knows what the gene is capable of, is doing, is prepared, making an ethical, smart decision to help, keep the value of this bloodline intact and also keep, the trust of people that work with this morph, stable. And this is also something that needs to be addressed, and that is really, really important, and then can open actually doors because some breeders might have never thought of it that way. And now that they do, they find new opportunities, to talk to their clients and get a totally different relationship to their customers. And I
Right.
think that's a wonderful thing.
Education's so important because this information is not always easily found, like on Google or anything like that. You can get yourself down the rabbit trail. That's why we do these shows, to kind of help bring light to that. But just educating people on, let's say, the correct way to breed things, but at least educate them on how to preserve the lines and the quality, because I don't think people really quite understand. I mean, even see people that have been doing this for years and years, they just breed on like a numbers amount, like, you know what I mean? Like that's the mindset. Like if I make X amount of clutches, it'll equal X amount of money. But breeding should overall be focused on enhancing what's already here, not just making more just to make more. I mean, these are reptiles that they live a long time,
Excellent.
type of thing. So educating people on that, I think, is
Yeah.
key.
And
So,
that's what I'm really passionate about. So basically what I'm doing at Dragoon Gecko is I'm approaching my breeding the same way that a horse breeder, that breeds racing horses, or a famous dog breeder of, I don't know, golden retrievers would do. We
yeah.
know exactly, or I know exactly, where my animals come from. I have bred some lines. I can trace some of my own lines back to 2005. So I know exactly what I'm working with. I know how those genes behave. And I know the famous founders that were influential of building up that line. And I'm very, very selective what comes into breeding. Sometimes in a breeding project, we do not have every year, a holdback to replace some of the previous generation. So I'm really selective. I also want to make sure that not every of our breeding females breeds every season. So I also like to give them a break and have a little extra, also for the purpose of genetic diversity. And I think this is really important. So we are also very selective and careful what we get into new gene wise. It's getting really hard and difficult getting geckos from trusted sources where you know what really is put into them, because if somebody breeds for 2 or 3 years and buys for someone that breeds 2 or 3 years, you have those, you only can, say what you produce in your own stock, right? So if I buy a gecko from another breeder, I have to trust this breeder's word. And that, person might have bought the geckos from another breeder and from another and from another. So this is a topic that would make a fantastic topic to another podcast. How do we, deal with all those different genes and the possibilities? And you're always standing a little bit between being transparent and telling the people very clearly what they can expect and what they can't. They can expect when they are getting an animal from me that I've done certain lines over 10 years, or of course, I also working with younger projects, but then I always state this and say, hey, I'm only working 2 or 3 years. That's what I can say. And that's what I can't say. If you want someone who has dealt with this line for 10 years, I refer you to Breeder X. So that's my approach, because I'm always a team player. I believe in helping each other out. Also, if I have someone inquiring about a specific gecko and I know that I don't have it, but you have it, for example, it's for me a self, a natural thing and self understanding thing to do, that I refer them to you and say, hey, I don't know. Yeah, Krista might be the ones who works with Black Knights. I don't work with Black Knights, for example. So I think this is the one side, and on the other side, we have to think about what we can guarantee and what we can't. Working with those lines for such a long time for sure has its advantages, but of course, without a gene test, from a veterinary standpoint, I can't guarantee anything, and I feel really bad about that, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm just a human person. I make mistakes. I'm not better than anyone else. I just do what I do to the best of my abilities.
Mhm.
And sometimes that confuses people because they think they feel more comfortable buying from someone who says, oh, this is 100% no known head.
Mm.
And that makes me a little bit very sometimes, because I feel that the better approach is to say, to the best of my abilities, it shouldn't have any heads in it, but without a gene test, I can't guarantee it. So until we
Yeah.
have a gene test, all those things are a little bit confusing, especially for newer folks. And for example, if your only goal is to have a beautiful tramper, especially as a pet, it doesn't matter so much whether it comes from a line that has 10, 15 generations or two.
Mhm.
So, or if you're working with a specific line and you have a trustful source and it is a dominant gene, then I think this is also a different story. But with line breeding traits especially, it's
Yeah.
getting really it's very rewarding. It's wonderful because you can give your own unique spin to your animals, but it also comes with a great responsibility in really tracking the history of your line, being really aware of what you get into those lines, and also, and what we haven't touched yet, what is really important for me, have the balance between infusing new blood to hold vigor and strength and vitality in the leopard gecko population that you have, because that's what responsible breeders do. Yeah, we try to stay away from close inbreeding. We're trying to stay away from inbreeding depressions and bottleneck effects and everything like that. So we need to sometimes take the slower approach and have this balance between selective line breeding with further related animals, but
Mhm.
at the same time outcrossing and giving this new blood for a chance to to stay healthy for the long term. So being a leopard gecko breeder and also being a ball python breeder and reptile breeder in general certainly means first and foremost that your most important goal is the animal's health and
Mhm.
fitness. And I think character is also something that I take into account,
Yep.
that has shown really crazy effects here in my facility. That's so cool that you have some lines that are really human oriented.
Mhm.
They are really, they are not sitting around and just observing. They are actively approaching you. They are
Yeah.
following you. They are adaptive and learning to some degree. So leopard geckos can be so exciting and so rewarding to work with if you put in the effort, and the possibilities here are endless if you're doing what you do with responsibility, patience, and care, and always with the well-being of the animals in mind.
Yeah, beautifully done. I had a question kind of with that too. Kind of spirit off curiosity, but with the health side of things and how to care for them and all of that, do you think the way you keep them, I mean, we talked about it may not even breed, but I feel like it could also influence the phenotype of them too. Like, say have you seen that? Where, I mean, I guess it's more of like an experimental questions where my science is keeping in. Like, you keep them a certain way and their offspring look like this, or if you keep them a certain way and the offspring look like this, even though genetically they should be very similar, but the way they're kept can have so many more influence on genes that can either turn up or down color, obviously health if they're kept inappropriately. Yeah, but it's just more of a curiosity and kind of interweave it into how you kind of care for babies, or if there's like a certain kind of way you've learned how to do it to start them off on the right foot and health and all that. Just curiosity. Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. And Again, two things fuse. So the one is the science side. Yes, of course. One of the reasons why I love this species and breed it exclusively, I'm not breeding anything else. I stuck to leopard geckos. They have my heart and my soul, and for good reason, because they are so adaptive to their environment, and also some genetic combos seem to be incredible, especially the ghost. I wrote an article, I think it was back in 2008, 2010. I don't know, but
A long time.
even then it was very obvious, and it has proven, over the years to be even more extreme, that the ghost trait has the ability, like a chameleon, to change colors. So if I selectively breed my ghost line for brightness, let's say I'm going with the ghost albinos or ghost albino snows, those look pretty cool in pink. I call them my Barbie geckos because they really pop in colors. And they can look dark the one day and very bright the next day, under the same temperatures, under the same conditions, the same setup. And this is something that I do not see that extreme in any other morph. So for me, ghosts are definitely one of the most underrated old school morphs, because they have such a huge possibility and potential that so many people have not seen for quite some time, and they are now getting over the years more and more popular again in Europe and also in US, which is cool to see, and really heartwarming, because my heart really beats for the ghosts, because they are so adaptive. If you cross them with the Black Knights, they give this really cool military dark green. If you put them on the other side of the spectrum, they have this sea foam green, bluish pigments. It's amazing. It is really amazing. And the animals are so robust and healthy, at least the animals that I work with, of course. But from what I see, they're just beautiful, and they give their unique spin to other lines that you cross them into. So I think that many people have not understood in the beginning the huge variation that, as seemingly simple dominant mutation carries. But if you're looking with an open eye, and if you're willing to adapt and treat ghosts a little bit like it would be polygenic, if it would be selective bred and line bred trait, you will discover endless possibilities and what you can do with them. So, for example, I think this is a very powerful and cool example to show how leopard geckos beat your expectations every time. Because, we know from Ron Tramp's book that they adapt to darker and to lighter environments, or to darker and lighter incubation temperature and whatever. So there are so many strings you can pull that makes it so fascinating to work with. On the other hand, back to your question, what I do, I'm not doing anything of that for good reason. I want to be honest, and I don't want to give first of all, I would do my animals a disservice. Let's say if I'm breeding for dark geckos and I'm keeping them on a dark background, of course they would adapt a little bit and be darker, but as soon as they move to a new home and they are kept not dark anymore in another setup, they would lighten up. So the people who bought my animal would be disappointed, and it would fall back on my reputation. This is what I do not want. And the animal would suffer because people would be disappointed, which is what I do not want. And also, if I keep my animals in an environment that is triggering a kind of coloration that I like, this is not something that is genetic. And it's clouding my view. It's like putting a beauty filter when you're dating. I mean, sorry. I mean, nobody likes to wake up to someone that is totally different.
Yeah, no, the makeup scare is real.
No, it's the same. It's the same when you're breeding animals. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally feel that it is, for me as a breeder, the honest approach, again, is the shortcut, because I can then select specifically the animals who excel without any external factors. They are just beautiful naturally on their own. If they express something that I want, and I know it's not the food, it's not the setup, it's just genetics, then I know it's worth pursuing. So I think that people are, again, we're talking about the shortcut that doesn't exist, wasting precious resources, time, maybe picking the wrong, holdbacks for their projects because they do not think this through from a long-term perspective. And I think this is so, so, so important.
Wonderfully said. Yeah.
I hope I
No,
didn't. I
there's
hope
a-
I didn't shock someone with
no,
with the example, but it was the only thing that I thought of at
no,
that time.
it's there's so much that kind of just goes into it. I think too, and a lot of it we just don't really know per se on how we can influence the genetics and the phenotype of the animal, but how we keep them. But as long as we're, keeping them healthy and not keeping them something that could influence it in the moment, you want to be able to do something that's reproducible.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the best way to kind of do it. So
That's what
yeah.
people expect. So again, what I learned in coming back to my study, maybe what I learned in veterinary clinic, and I don't know if this is maybe something that you encountered as well. I felt that one of the most challenging parts in practical, clinic, day by day experience was for sure the fact that I realized that for you and for me and for many animal keepers, they absolutely love their animals and they would do everything to care for them. But when you're working in the clinic and you're working with patients on a bigger number, because it's the university clinics and there is, one appointment after the other, you sooner or later realize that for some amount of people and for growing amount of people at that time, their animal was, especially in the exotic niche, worth what they initially invested in. So if we were, making a treatment plan costing $200 to $300 and the animal was worth $20 to $50, we knew chances were very low that people were willing to pay that. I don't know, is this something that you ran into as well?
Yes, I would say so, because we didn't have a lot of, if we're talking about reptiles specifically, yes, because it gets a little harder with dogs and cats because a lot of people see them it kind of depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at the animal as a family member, people will pay, and some people look at the reptiles like that too. They will pay whatever, they could get the dog for free at a shelter, but they'll spend, however many thousands to save it. But it depends. Breeder, it's costing X amount. I see it on the cattle side a little bit where even girls on a farm.
That was extreme.
Yeah, where if the animal's not worth the treatment, then they just, so yeah.
They all have this price tag over their heads. That was my personal feeling. And although it was heartbreaking because the farmers, they really, really cared for their animals, you could really see that they struggled with those decisions. And they were forced to make decisions they really didn't want to do. And the cows and the pigs sometimes still had names. So that was something that I found really challenging. And that, also went parallel with my experience in the reptile clinics. And I reached a point where I was finally realizing, okay, you can't change the way people are, but you can change their perception. You can use whatever you have on arguments in a way that opens their hearts and that you can work with. And so this was exactly when I realized I need to raise my prices with Dragoon Gecko. Of course, at the beginning, you're just a student. You don't have the high-end stuff the first years. You have, imposter syndrome. I always, also today, I really try to stay low. I'm not sharing everything that I have, and I'm for sure not rushing into claims. For example, with the lilacs, it's just a project, and when people are probing me, I tell them for 2 years, it's still such a young project. I want to have at least 5 generations before I say anything, because I want to make sure that your trust is in good hands, and that you can count on that I have thought this through to the best of my abilities. So coming back to this situation in the reptile clinic, I personally found my solution, okay, in making sure my animals are as valuable as possible to their new owners, just as a kind of security mechanism. I know that I took always great care to find the right homes, and some pet homes are excellent homes and exceed some breeder standards. It's really loving to see how some kids go up and beyond for their first gecko, and parents are so supporting. And then of
Right.
course, as you say, it's not really the question whether this gecko is 500 or 50 euros. The gecko will be fine. But for the majority, and in order to put this all into a system that promotes animal welfare, I really made the drastic approach and decision to make sure to pack as much value in my animals as possible, from every angle, from my service angle, from the quality of the animal, from the way that I educate my potential new homes for them, just to make sure that I've done everything in my power to give them a better home. And I think everything starts out with a tiny wave, and then it gets a dynamic. After some years, you could really tell that those people were telling people, and they were bringing the message into more reptile homes and in my area locally. So seeing that when you're approaching the shows is one of the most extraordinary moments that I'm most grateful for, when people tell me, "Oh, you were, the one who got me into thinking about this and that topic, and now I made this and that, and look how beautiful it looks, and look how happy the gecko is now." So this is something that I think every one of us can do and should do, in order to spread the message and just spread the passion of promoting what our animals need to thrive, and we will thrive with them. So
It go back to the education part, and I think with reptile medicine health, in most cases, it's due to poor care or poor husbandry. Of course, you do get the cases where it's infectious or like egg binding, things like that come up. But a lot of the things, at least because I consult a little bit on the side with reptiles, a lot of it's just improper care, improper husbandry, that if we just educate them from the get-go, then that can also limit those kind of health problems down the road where they have to make that decision on. And as you said, with keeping your prices or raising them, I have seen, or I've had heard the comment where, oh, it's just a $20 gecko, and then that mindset of the cost of it causes them to care for it a certain way that they wouldn't. It shouldn't be the case, but that's how some people see it too. So kind of to prevent that, to kind of keep the animals safer, having them at what they're worth, the time and effort we put in is better for that animal's, I think, benefit.
I always like to say to people that talk to me, especially also on shows, when they are seeing different price ranges and wonder why there are some animals for higher amount and also some animals as pet onlys. I can value for every of my babies the same. They all come from animals that I love and cherish deeply, and I have cherished and loved their parents, their grandparents, their grandparents, So whenever I'm walking into my reptile room, I'm like Alice in Wonderland. I'm having my own little Jurassic Park, so to say. I'm having some projects that are extinct in the world that I, have the privilege and the great honor to and hold for the future. Hopefully, we will see. And even in my own line breeding projects, when I look back, I see this one ghost, and I know that she's the great 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 granddaughter of Kalara. And then I see some electric, and I know this is Volcano's line, and I see all, like in a family tree, you see the similarities in their facial structure, in their coloration, in the way they behave. And you can trace this back, like, again, a horse breeder, to the most influential stallions and mares that you love and care so deeply. So no matter what the price tag on a gecko is for me, it is the same amount of love and care and money that goes into raising one of my geckos. It's just that the higher, of course, a price tag is, the higher the security net for this animal becomes. And that is, as you said perfectly, Krista, something that we can't change. But as responsible breeders, we can use it to our advantage, and we can take a step back, take a deep breath, and really think about what we need to do to promote this hobby on a responsible level, to do this in the best way possible, to give also people from the outside who are not used to what we're doing the best possible impression and the best possible honest insight in how we love and care for animals, because that's what we do. And this is something that I try to implement every time I go to a show, and in the hopes that the message, goes out and reaches more people.
Totally agree with that. It's just interesting perspective that I've heard it just at the shows. People walking around wondering why, this one is such a difference in price, and it comes with the education part of it too. So we're at an hour and a half, which is where I kind of like to keep things for both people's time. It's been a very good show. I would like to kind of finish up with showing some of your productions. You sent me some pictures. I also can go to your Instagram page. Will that also be? I can share the page.
Sure,
on
whatever
the show.
you like.
We can talk about some of those guys, and then we can kind of finish up with how people can contact you, or any last minute things. But it's been, I've really enjoyed the show so far. I've learned a lot, and I think people will be excited to hear what you've had to say, and hear the passion and the work and all of that goes into it.
Thank you so very much.
Let me share. Share screen. Okay, I just have to. Okay. All right. I think you can see. You should be able to see my screen now. Your page, correct?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Perfect. So here's the ghost that we've been talking. I just feel like sometimes even people that aren't used to the leopard geckos, putting the names to what we're talking about really helps bring everything together. And so, highlighting the ham show here. How did that show go? It was like last month.
Yeah, that was amazing. We were, as I said, we were having a very controlled and slow season this year, because we officially moved Dragoon Gecko from a hobby breeding all those years to now an full-fledged, officially veterinary approved breeding. So there will be some interesting things that we will do in the future. I think size-wise, not many things will change, because I always like to be on the smaller side of things. But I think it was a wonderful chance to bring some of our older animals and also retired breeders to the show to show people how great a gecko can look after all those years if it has good genetics and if you treat it with tender, loving care and maybe not breed it every season. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was cool.
It's a pretty animal too. I'm trying to find,
Thank
and if
you.
you want to
Yeah,
highlight.
those are all the green ones are all ghost variations, and this one is Matcha. She's very interesting. She's an always ghost Afghan female. So
Hmm.
again, using wild blood strategically to infuse some new genes, strengthen the gene pool, but still overall, improving the clarity of colors and lines. And yeah, I just like this subtle green on this one. Usually when you see our pure albase, you can see that they are, even when they're adults, they're pure white as they're supposed to be. So this is also something that line breeding, really can do for you. The first albase that we work with in 2012 had this light shimmer, and now most of them are just pure white, even as adults.
It's really beautiful. Yeah, I love the green in there. And there's the pattern is, even though
Yeah.
it is younger, so it may change as older, but the pattern and just the dots that are coming in too. It's very pretty. Carrot head. Oh, these are, I don't know which one to pick.
The left one, then this is one of our breeder, always snow breeders, actually. So this is looking like a super snow, but it is the ethically safer and version. So this is an always snow eclipse, petaless eclipse, looking like a super snow, but without the problems that we see sometimes on super snows with the nostrils. So the always do not have that, and they keep their beautiful colors. And you can also see when you're looking very closely, a max snow would be pure black and white, and this animal is like faded, and he has this shimmer of greenish bluish pigments underlying very slightly that you can see in the close-up. So I think for anyone who is into black and white geckos, the always offer a lot of potential. I remember you're not a real fan of snows in general, but those are definitely something that you can push to an interesting level of contrast and colors.
I like all of the just kind of information on the side here about your thoughts and the directions. I think that's super, super helpful with new people coming in to learn about, some of the issues with certain morphs in the beginning and, what to kind of avoid, what to look for, and all of that as they're starting out is super important, I think. Here's jump snow ultraviolet. Okay. Yeah, look at this pretty one here.
Yeah, the gems are sometimes a trouble to work with, but
Oh,
this is something that I'm now thinking is going into the right direction. But as I said, some projects just take time. You cannot achieve, everything in 1 or 2 generations. So
yes, that's the one to me when I started. I just felt like a rush to get into these things, and I think it's important to tell people like it's not a rush to just calm down and think things through, and it would pay off, more dividends, I guess, in the end of just taking one's time and doing things in a strategic manner than just rushing to breed. Easier said than done, but patience is key. This little fellow is just absolutely stunning.
thank you. And this is just a plain old high quality raptor, just for showing that, sometimes a nice approach isn't just always changing the next big thing, but trying to hold the treasures from the past to the future. So that's what I like to do, and I think the raptor definitely deserves his own spot here. I still love them very, very much.
Absolutely beautiful, yeah. Beautiful color. Think. And then here we got the Albie Snow. This is a
Yeah.
lot with the lavender.
Yeah. The one on the right actually is a proven breeder female. So
Oh, let's see. This one
I
here.
can, yeah, yeah. So
So
That's how
beautiful.
they look when they're adult, and they do not yellow out anymore.
Yes. Yeah. It's very crisp. You can see the black and white very well. I love the blue shimmer that also they keep as an adult too, like right between the eyes. It's really pretty. It's like just a nice little bit of. Have you seen any? Well, you've talked a little bit, I guess, about the blue shimmer. There, I can see some a little bit here in the shoulders, but that would be
Mm.
interesting to create more of that blue shimmer throughout too. Would be, I think, really pretty.
Yeah, as you can see, I have a weakness for lavender colored geckos.
Yes,
So
I see that.
but
I like
this
the
is due
orange
to
stuff, so yeah.
this is due to the fact that everybody told me when I was a beginner that nobody could breed an all purple gecko, and it would be impossible to breed a true purple gecko. And yeah, I was stubborn and I tried, and I succeeded in 22. So that was also one of those moments where, you know, I wasn't expecting this at all. I was thinking that maybe I would have the first one in another 5 years or so, because it's really a very, very slow progress. But then, yeah, all of the sudden we hatched them. And now, of course, it is about quality and refinement. But having one of your childhood dreams coming into reality the safe way, by outcrossing, by focusing on strength, this is something that is so rewarding for me, because I have my peace of mind that, I've not cut corners and not risked the animals' health in order to produce a gecko that comes closer and closer to my initial vision. And setting the foundation right, I think, is something that I can recommend to every breeder, because it gives you the best start. It is, just a door opener for so many generations in the future. And of course, the animals will be very, very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. These guys are just absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And again, I love the
Yeah, you
comment.
see the difference between the ghost and the not ghost, the
Yes,
non-ghost. Can you spot that?
ghost and the non-ghost. We're talking about just the overall color. You can go into a little bit more if I'm missing.
Yeah.
But I see
So
the difference. This guy on top has just a little more of contrast and a little bit.
yeah, and that's the non-ghost. So the ghost, you can see, is displaying huge potential of green with a faded look. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what the ghost gene in my line is doing very potently. So this is something that almost works a little bit like white and yellowish, but without
Yeah.
the beauty filter. So this is also something that I like to use. I rather use a very high quality old gene to push, projects in a direction, instead of going the easy short way and just putting a white and yellow or enigma over it. Enigmas are not interesting for me because of the health issues anyway. But speaking of, color enhancer genes that work pretty easily, versus line breeding, the line breeding always wins, because you can just have so much more control about the. And there was Dracana over there, by the way.
What was that?
That red-eyed gecko. That
Oh,
was
yes, I saw that one. Yeah. This one here. Wow. Oh, wow.
yeah, long ago, but still. And those are the lilacs. Yeah,
Very
that we
cool.
had.
Awesome. Amazing, amazing, beautiful, beautiful animals. I'm glad we got to see a bit
Thank
of your work that you've spent so much time working on. You can really see the quality and the contrast. And that's one of my favorite things to do on the show, is show them and then hear people describe it, because you can really
Yeah.
hear the passion that's put into it. And I think that hopefully that will get across to the viewers as well, because then that inspires them to look at their own projects with that kind of light and gives them a little bit of a excitement going forward, I think. So it was
Sure.
very,
Yeah.
very appreciative. So yeah, so we can kind of wrap things up with at first, if there's anything you wanted to sort of touch on, kind of wrapping into how people can reach out, new and upcoming things with Dragoon Gecko that if you would like to go into, and a little bit of the coaching side of things we talked about a little bit, you can bring up.
Sure. Yes. So we do not have animals available year round. So this is something that I'm pretty strict on, also due to the fact that we have not, a huge amount of babies hatching every season. And as a, stay-home mom, also I need to, approach this a little bit more effectively. So what we are doing is, for all the people that are interested in our animals, they can subscribe to our free newsletter. And the best way to do so is just shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I sent you the link so you can subscribe there. It's for free, and it's not, something where we spam you. It's just basically only going out when we have animals available, which is maximum 5 times a year, usually 2 to 3 times a season. And then, people get an overview on what's available, and they get genetic info for the animals and can make their educated choices, what they, would like to have in their projects. So animal-wise, it's always good to be on the newsletter in order to, be one of the first who has access and see
Perfect.
them when they become available. Coaching-wise, our homepage is currently under reconstruction. If you want to have, use the last chance to see the old homepage and my old works from the past, you can go over at dragoongecko.com and see all of that. There's the proof that, we've been there for a while, have done some things, and also there are valuable informations about some of the older projects we still work with today. And of course, for all of those who are, interested in breeding cycles and how to survive a breeding crisis. I know that this is a topic lately that has been requested in my coachings more and more. So I decided to make a little special live event, a special webinar for that purpose. So next Monday, will be the time where we will holding a short presentation about that topic with a question and answer round at the end of it. And if you go to my Instagram on my link, you'll find the landing page where you can join. Spaces are limited because we want to keep it quality, and I want to have time to, really also go into the question round. But I think this would be a valuable topic, not only for leopard breeders, but for any reptile breeders who struggle a little bit with the topics that we touched a little bit on here. But unfortunately, time is short and we couldn't cover everything today. And so if that is a thing to you, then feel free to check out our Instagram and click the link.
Perfect. Yeah, I will put the newsletter and the Instagram link in the description so that people can just click to it and go to it to be pretty easy. Are there any other places people should go to reach out to you, or you would say the Instagram is primarily?
Yeah, right now Instagram is our primarily, focus. I do have an older YouTube account where I already, have put together a playlist for, previous interviews from the last decade for the one or the other person who might be interested in that. And, in order to save people time and struggle searching for that, it's there if you want to check it out. And maybe if we have more time in the future, we can activate the YouTube account. But right now, I beg your pardon, understanding that we need to stay small and humble. And that's what we do for a while, because it's just too much work. But that's what, my work is all about: staying small, staying focused, and, doing what I can manage.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of one of the big picture items, is staying small, focused, quality, and working hard at it every day. So it's been a great show. I definitely would like to have you again in the future at some point. There's so many other topics that could be talked about, but I had a really great time. I hit the main pieces I wanted to kind of hit. Was there anything else you wanted to to touch on or anything like that or go into?
So many things. I feel
know,
bad
I see
that we
that.
didn't
Go
touch
for a
on
whole
all the
show.
notes that I made for you guys. But I hope we will have another opportunity in the future. If you want to touch on specific topics, let us know in the comments below.
Yep.
I want to take the chance, Krista, to thank you personally so very much for the great honor and privilege being here on your, show and the Trap Talk Network, and for all that you and Chris and the team is doing for the community. So this is absolutely fantastic, and I hope that this talk was valuable for you guys. And I hope that, if anything, I could prove that leopard geckos are not boring, that they are absolutely fascinating, that they have so much to offer, and that there are countless possibilities for you to put your projects onto the next level in an animal-friendly and ethical and safe way.
Perfect. Awesome. I thought that went super well. I just again, thank you for your time. So many more things we can discuss, but again, I think this show was went really well. So again, I thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time, and all the
Anytime.
passion in your voice. I hope hopefully the leopard gecko breeders, they'll listen to this, or even some people that don't, breed leopard geckos may interest them and may get into it. A big thing right now is a little bit diversity too, kind of branching out and maybe adding more species in. So this could be a good way to do that for people. So again, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to take you off stage real quick, and then I'll wrap things up.
Thank you so very much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening in. Again, put your comments down below on what you would like to hear for the next one when I have Rebecca on. I definitely want to have Ron for round 2 at some point. And if you guys have questions, just reach out to me on Instagram. And I hope you guys have a great start to your week.